Hey, my dear horror story listeners, I hope you enjoy this story. If you like it, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. So let's begin the story. I never thought I'd end up working night shifts at a Taco Bell off Highway 47. When I was younger, I used to drive past that same spot with my dad, back when things still felt normal, when dinner meant a home-cooked meal, not cold tacos eaten behind a register at 2 a.m. I'm 24 now, and life looks a lot different than I imagined. My dad passed away 2 years ago from a stroke, and my mum moved back to Oklahoma to live with her sister. It's just me and my younger sister, Kayla, renting a tiny apartment in Hollow Creek, Oregon, a town small enough to vanish from a map if you blinked too fast. I'd been at that Taco Bell for 3 years, mostly nights. Rent doesn't pay itself, and the extra $1.25 an hour for closing shifts made the exhaustion a little easier to swallow. The store sat right at the edge of town, next to a car wash that never worked, and a half-dead strip mall where the neon lights flickered like they were gasping for air. Across the street was the Hollow Creek Bridge, a long concrete stretch over a deep canyon that locals said was cursed. People had jumped from it before. Everyone in town knew about the canyon, but no one liked to talk about it. That night started like any other closing shift. It was me, Kayla, and our manager, Melissa Hart, a woman in her mid-30s with bleached hair, tired eyes, and the kind of patience that only comes from years of fast food chaos. We'd been on our feet for almost 10 hours straight. Orders hadn't stopped all night, mostly drunk college kids coming from the bar near the highway. The fryer was sputtering, the grill hissed every few seconds, and the drive-through headset kept beeping like a damn heart monitor. By the time we locked the doors, it was past 1:30 a.m. Grease clung to my skin. My back ached. My stomach growled so loud it made Kayla laugh weakly. "Let's sit for a second," Melissa said, pulling off her headset and rubbing her temples. We earned it. We grabbed our food and sat at one of the booths near the window. The lobby lights hummed overhead. Outside, the parking lot was mostly empty, just a couple of cars left over from the bar down the road. The air outside looked thick, that heavy Oregon fog that rolls in late at night and swallows sound. Kayla unwrapped her taco like it was gold. "I swear, if one more guy orders 6 quesadillas at 1 a.m., I'm walking out." Melissa laughed tiredly. "You've been saying that for months." "I mean it this time," Kayla said through a mouthful of food. "I can't feel my legs." I grinned, about to respond, when the sound hit. Bang, bang, bang. 3 sharp knocks against the glass door. All of us froze. At first, I thought maybe someone had crashed into the glass. The sound was that sudden. But no, there was a man standing outside, his fists pressed to the door, his face illuminated by the dim glow of the parking lot lights. He didn't look right. His clothes were wrinkled and stained, like he'd been wearing them for days. His hair was messy, sticking up in odd directions. But it was his eyes that caught me. They were too wide, unfocused, like he hadn't blinked in hours. Melissa stood up, sighing like she'd dealt with this before. "I'll handle it." She walked toward the door but kept it locked. "Sorry, sir, we're closed," she said through the glass, raising her voice. The man shook his head slowly. "Please," he said, his voice muffled but desperate. "I need to eat. Just real quick. We're closed," Melissa repeated, firmer this time. He didn't move, didn't even flinch. He just stared at her, his face inches from the glass. A silence stretched too long. Then he spoke again, quieter this time. "Let me in." Melissa stepped back a little. "Sir, I can't do that. Please leave before we call security." He didn't argue. He just stood there, his hands twitching at his sides. Then he glanced over his shoulder, as if checking for something or someone behind him. When he turned back, his eyes met mine. Something about that look sent a chill through me. Kayla muttered, "Come on, Mel, sit down." "He's just some drunk." Melissa hesitated, then nodded and sat back down. "He'll leave." They always do, but he didn't. He didn't knock again, didn't shout or make a scene. He just stayed there, sometimes pacing by the door, sometimes walking a few feet toward the parking lot before returning. Always watching. Every few minutes I checked the security cameras. He never went to a car. He didn't seem to have one. After 15 minutes, Kayla whispered, "Maybe we should call someone." Melissa shook her head. "And tell them what?" "That a guy's standing outside. Hollow Creek PD will take an hour to show up. Let's finish closing. He'll leave." We tried to act normal, scrubbing down the counters, refilling sauce containers, mopping floors. But that feeling that we were trapped in a fishbowl while someone watched from the dark wouldn't go away. At one point, I looked up at the camera feed and saw him walking toward the bridge down the street. My stomach tightened. I'd seen too many stories about that bridge. "I think he's leaving," I said. "Good," Kayla whispered. But a few minutes later, he was back, standing even closer to the glass now, just watching. That's when something in me changed from scared to uneasy. It wasn't just that he was acting strange, it was that he looked familiar, like I'd seen him before. I couldn't place it though, and that made it worse. Around 2 a.m, we were finally done. I volunteered to take the trash out just to get out of that thick silence. I dragged the heavy bags toward the back door and pushed it open. The cold air hit me hard. I dumped the bags in the dumpster, wiped my hands, and turned toward the front lot. He was gone. Just gone. I ran back inside. He's not there anymore. Melissa looked up from counting the register. "Good. No, I mean, he didn't leave." I didn't see him go. 1 second he was there, then he wasn't. Kayla frowned. "You think he's hiding somewhere?" Melissa grabbed the keys. "Let's check outside before we walk to our cars." We locked up and stepped out, flashlights in hand. The air was quiet. Too quiet. We climbed the metal stairs that led to the roof to get a better view. From up there, we could see everything. The street, the parking lot, even the stretch of road that led to the bridge. Nothing, no movement, no car. "Where the hell did he go?" Kayla murmured. "Maybe he wandered off," Melissa said, though her voice didn't sound convinced. We went back down, hurriedly finished locking up, and started walking toward our cars. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. My chest felt heavy, like a weight pressing down on me. Every step made the shadows seem thicker. I gripped my car keys so tight my knuckles ached. Kayla fumbled with her door. Melissa's hands shook as she double-checked the locks. That's when I heard it. A soft sound coming from behind the building, like someone dragging their feet through gravel. Kayla froze. "You heard that, right?" "Yeah," I whispered. Melissa turned toward the sound, her flashlight beam cutting across the dark alley behind the dumpster. But there was nothing. No movement, no person. Just that fog rolling in again. We didn't wait. We got in our cars and left, each one of us looking in our mirrors the whole way home. That wasn't the first strange night I'd had there. A few years earlier, before Kayla started working with me, I'd had another one that still messes with me. It was late, just before closing, when a man came in. He was tall, maybe mid-30s, with wind-burned cheeks and a kind of nervous excitement about him. He ordered a bunch of food, 3 burritos, a Baja Blast, and a side of nachos. As I handed him his bag, he grinned. "Gotta fuel up before the jump," he said. "The jump?" I asked, half smiling. He pointed toward the bridge. "Base jumpers come from all over for that canyon. It's beautiful at night, I didn't think much of it then. Just another thrill-seeker doing something stupid." He left with a smile and a wave. The next morning, I saw the news. A base jumper's parachute hadn't opened. They found him at the bottom of the canyon at sunrise. He was from out of state, alone. The article said he'd stopped for food before heading to the bridge. I realized then I was the last person who saw him alive. For weeks after, I couldn't stop thinking about that look on his face. The excitement, the calm certainty, like he already knew what was coming. Sometimes, when I close the store now and look out through those glass doors, I wonder if the man we saw that night, the one pounding on the doors, was connected somehow. Because ever since that night, every time I drive past the bridge, I see a figure standing by the railing, not moving, just watching the canyon below. And every time I swear he's wearing the same wrinkled clothes, the same messy hair, the same eyes that never blink. I don't stop anymore, I just keep driving. But sometimes, when the fog rolls thick through Hollow Creek, I can still hear the faint sound of someone knocking 3 times against the glass. Story 2. I never used to believe that your gut could save your life. You hear people talk about intuition like it's some mystical thing. Trust your instincts. Go with your gut. But you never really think much of it until you're standing in the middle of nowhere, heart pounding, wondering if the next decision you make might be the last one. That night on the road changed how I look at everything. It's been over 2 years, and I still think about it. About what we saw, about what almost happened, and about how close we came to making the wrong choice. My name's Ethan Cole, and this happened in October 2022, somewhere between Montgomery, Alabama, and Baton Rouge, Louisiana. My girlfriend Lauren and I were driving cross-country, just the 2 of us and my old 2014 Toyota Camry. We'd been dating for almost 3 years at the time, and this was supposed to be our big getaway, a road trip before everything got serious. Back then, life felt stuck. I'd been working at a local auto shop for 5 years, changing oil and rotating tires, and Lauren was in between nursing jobs. We were both burnt out, both tired of the same small-town routine. So we packed our bags, threw a cooler of snacks in the trunk, and hit the road with no real plan except to see the Gulf Coast and figure things out. But by the time we hit rural Alabama that night, we were running on fumes, emotionally and literally. "Ethan, I'm starving," Lauren groaned from the passenger seat. Her phone screen glowed faintly in the dark as she scrolled through Google Maps. "It says there's a diner up ahead, but it closed at 10. "What time is it now?" I asked, rubbing at my eyes. "Almost midnight." "Great," I exhaled and adjusted my grip on the wheel. "Figures." The highway stretched out in front of us, endless black asphalt cutting through empty fields. No cars, no lights, no towns, just miles of nothing. The kind of nothing that makes you realize how big the world feels when you're tired and lost. Lauren tried to reload the map again, but the little grey circle just spun and spun. "Still no service," she said. "Awesome, we're officially in the middle of nowhere." I tried to laugh, but my voice came out flat. "Hey, it's all part of the adventure, right?" She shot me a look. "Yeah, adventure. That's one word for it. We'd been driving since 4 that afternoon. We were supposed to reach Baton Rouge by 10, but a bad wreck on E65 forced us to take a detour down some 2-lane county road that looked like it hadn't been repaved since the 90s. It was faster on paper, but in reality it was a mess, winding, dark, and lined with trees that closed in like walls. My stomach growled again. "Okay, we need food," I said. "Anything, fast food, gas station hot dogs, I don't care." As if on cue, a green sign appeared on the side of the road. "Exit 119. Food, gas, lodging," I pointed at it. "See, we're saved." Lauren leaned forward, squinting through the windshield. "There's a Taco Bell listed, open 24 hours. "Perfect," I said, flipping on the blinker. I knew the universe still loved us. She smirked. "If you call midnight tacos love, sure." The exit led us down a narrow ramp into what looked like a half-dead town. A few streetlights flickered weakly overhead. Most of the buildings were dark. An old laundromat, a boarded-up car wash, a budget inn with 2 broken windows. The only thing still lit up was the Taco Bell on the corner. Its neon sign buzzed faintly, the purple bell logo glowing against the night sky. Under it, a small sign proudly declared, "Open 24 hours." The parking lot was completely empty. Lauren frowned. "That's weird." "Small town," I said. "Probably not a lot of midnight taco runs out here." "Still, you'd think someone would be here." I pulled up to the drive-through speaker. The menu board flickered, static bleeding through the speaker. I leaned out my window. Hello? For a few seconds, nothing but static. Then a low male voice crackled through. "Welcome to Taco Bell. Can I take your order?" "Yeah," I started, glancing at Lauren. "Can we get—" I stopped. Underneath the static, faint but unmistakable, came another sound. A scream. Not the kind you mistake for laughter, not muffled music. A human scream, sharp, desperate, cut off halfway through. Lauren's head snapped toward me. "Ethan, tell me you heard that." I nodded slowly, my pulse thudding in my ears. Before I could say anything, the speaker came alive again. "We're closed," the voice said, monotone. I frowned. Your sign says 24 hours. More static. Then, "The sign's wrong. We're closed. Please leave," Lauren whispered. "Ethan, something's not right." "Let's go." I hesitated. My brain was screaming to listen to her. But that sound, that scream, it hadn't come from far away. It came from inside. "I just want to look," I said quietly. She grabbed my arm. "No, you're not getting out." I gently pulled free. "Just stay in the car." "I'll check the door, that's it." Lauren's eyes filled with fear. "Ethan, please." But I'd already stepped out. The night air was cold and still. Crickets buzzed faintly somewhere in the field behind the lot. The only light came from the Taco Bell's flickering bulbs overhead. Up close, the building looked wrong. The windows were tinted, but I could see faint movement inside, shadows shifting behind the counter. I called out, "Hey! You guys open or not?" No answer. I took a few steps closer. Through the glass, I caught a glimpse of someone, a man standing near the register. He wasn't wearing a uniform, just a black hoodie, sleeves rolled up over tattooed forearms. His head was tilted slightly, like he was studying me. "Hey," I said, forcing a nervous laugh. "Sign says you're open. We just wanted some food." The man didn't answer right away. He finally shook his head once. "Closed." "Okay, you sure?" His eyes didn't move from mine. "Yes." And then, behind him, movement. A figure. Someone crouched behind the soda machine. A woman, maybe late 20s, wearing a purple work shirt. Her eyes were wide, terrified. She mouthed something at me. "Help me!" My blood turned to ice. The man must have noticed my gaze shift because he stepped forward, blocking my view. "You should go," he said. His voice was different now, lower, tense. I took a step back. "What's going on in there?" He didn't answer, just stared. Then, from somewhere deeper inside the building, another scream. This one was louder, closer. Lauren's door slammed open behind me. "Ethan, get in the car!" The man's face twisted, his mouth pulling into something between a snarl and a forced grin. "Leave!" Now my instincts screamed louder than my thoughts. I backed up, turned, and sprinted for the car. Lauren had already thrown it into gear. The second I slammed the door shut, she hit the gas. The tires screeched against the cracked pavement, and we flew out of the parking lot. Neither of us said a word for the next minute. The silence in the car was thick, broken only by the sound of my own breathing. "Finally," Lauren said, her voice trembling. "Ethan, what the hell was that?" I stared ahead, knuckles white on my knees. "I don't know." "We need to call the cops." I nodded. "Yeah." She pulled over on the shoulder, hands shaking as she dialed 911. I could hear the dispatcher's calm voice through the speaker. Lauren explained everything. The scream, the man, the weird voice on the intercom. The dispatcher told us to stay put. 20 minutes later, a single sheriff's cruiser sped past us, lights flashing blue against the trees. We waited. 5 minutes, 10. Then, through the darkness, we saw another set of lights, an ambulance. Lauren covered her mouth. Oh my God! It was nearly 1 a.m. when a deputy finally waved us forward. We pulled into the Taco Bell lot again, though every cell in my body screamed not to. The place looked different now, red and blue lights bouncing off the windows, officers moving in and out through the glass doors. A paramedic was wheeling someone out on a stretcher, a young woman, pale, shaking, a dark bruise along her cheek. It was her, the woman who'd mouthed, "Help me." The man in the hoodie was handcuffed near one of the patrol cars, head down. His sweatshirt was spattered with something dark, grease or blood, I couldn't tell. An officer in a tan uniform approached our car. He looked exhausted. "You folks the ones who called it in?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "We didn't know what was going on, but we heard—" "You did the right thing," he interrupted softly. "Guy tried to rob the place, waited until the lobby closed, came in through the back door when only 2 employees were still here. He hit one of them with a crowbar, knocked her out cold. The other hid and triggered the drive-through mic, hoping someone would hear." Lauren's voice shook. "The scream—" "Yeah," the officer nodded. "That was her." "She's lucky you two stopped." I swallowed hard. "What about the other employee?" He looked away for a second. "They're working on her. EMTs think she'll pull through." Lauren started crying softly beside me. The officer sighed. "You folks probably saved both their lives tonight." We gave our statements, sat there while they took down our names and numbers. The adrenaline was wearing off, replaced by this deep, cold realization that we'd stumbled into something that could have gone very differently. When we finally pulled back onto the highway, the sky was starting to pale with the first light of dawn. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Lauren broke the silence first. "You know, if we hadn't taken that detour," I nodded. "Yeah." "Or if we'd just kept driving." "Yeah." She reached across the console and grabbed my hand. Hers was still trembling. "We could have died, Ethan." I squeezed her hand tighter. "Or someone else could have." We didn't stop until we hit a rest area near Baton Rouge. We parked under a streetlight and just sat there, staring out the windshield as the sun came up. Neither of us wanted food anymore. Neither of us said another word. It wasn't until later, when I read the short article online, that it hit me how close it really was. The man, his name was Caleb Morris, 32 years old, had been on parole for armed robbery. He'd been living out of his truck, drifting between towns. He'd cut power to the back of the Taco Bell, forced his way in through the kitchen. He wasn't even after cash, really. The report said he was looking for a vehicle. The woman who screamed. Her name was Ashley Nolan, 24. She'd just started there 2 weeks before. The article said she kept pressing the intercom button every few minutes, hoping someone, anyone, would hear. And we did. It's been 2 years since that night, but I still see her eyes in my dreams sometimes. Wide, pleading, terrified. Lauren and I don't take detours anymore. We don't drive through back roads after dark. And every time we pass a Taco Bell, even in broad daylight, we both go a little quiet. I guess some things just stick with you, not because you want them to, but because they remind you how thin the line really is between ordinary and nightmare, and how sometimes the only thing that saves you is the gut feeling you almost ignored. Story 3. I was 18 when I finally left home for good. My parents' house in Henderson, Kentucky had become a place I couldn't stand to breathe in anymore. Every dinner was a shouting match. My father's disappointment, my mother's silence, my brother's laughter in the background like none of it mattered. I told myself I'd only leave for a little while, maybe a year, but once I packed my old Honda Civic and hit the road, I never looked back. Texas was supposed to be my restart button. Dallas, to be exact. 10 hours away from everything familiar. The air was hotter, thicker, and the city felt like it was always awake. Cars rushing down interstates, neon signs buzzing outside gas stations, strangers laughing in languages I didn't understand. For the first few weeks, I barely talked to anyone. I went to work, came home, repeated. Then I met Kayla. We connected on Facebook through mutual friends. She worked the late shift at a Taco Bell near Northwest Highway, a small, tired-looking store sandwiched between a pawn shop and an abandoned Payless. She was 20, loud, reckless, and exactly the kind of person I needed to break out of my loneliness. We clicked fast, maybe too fast. Within days, I was spending every night with her. We'd sit in her dented Honda Accord smoking cheap cigarettes, talking about everything and nothing. Parents, exes, dreams we'd never chase. She was funny with this dry way of talking that made even dark things sound casual. "You ever feel like life's just one long graveyard shift?" she asked one night, flicking ash out the window. "All the time," I said. She laughed. "Good. Then you'll fit right in here." That's how I ended up working with her. Taco Bell night shift, 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid rent. We worked with one manager, Marcus, mid-30s, quiet guy with kind eyes and a limp from a car wreck years back. The three of us ran the store after dark. The smell of fried beef and cleaner hung heavy in the air. At night, the store was a different world. The day crowd disappeared, and what came in after midnight was something else entirely. Truckers, drunk college kids, homeless people looking for warmth, strangers who talked to themselves in line. I told myself it was harmless. Until that one night. It was late October, right before Halloween. The air outside had that strange chill where you can smell the cold coming. Kayla was refilling the sauce packets, Marcus was counting the register, and I was wiping down the lobby tables when the door chimed. I looked up. A man walked in. Tall, had to be 6'4", maybe taller. His coat looked older than he was, long, army green, the kind of fabric that soaks in years of dirt. His beard was grey, uneven, reaching halfway down his chest. His eyes, though, that's what I remember most. They didn't blink, not once. He didn't go to the counter. He just sat down at a booth in the far corner, directly across from where I was cleaning. His head followed me as I moved, not subtly, just watched. I felt that old survival instinct flare up, the one you get when someone's staring too long on a dark street. Kayla noticed too. She leaned over the counter. "Hey, you see that dude?" she whispered. "Yeah," I said quietly. "He's just sitting there." Marcus looked up from the register. "He order anything?" "No." Marcus sighed. "Kayla, go ask him to leave if he's not buying." "We can't have loitering." Kayla rolled her eyes. "Why is it always me?" "Because he's less likely to bite your head off," Marcus said, half joking. She grabbed a menu and walked over. I watched from the corner of my eye. "Hey, sir," she said, her voice friendly but firm. "You gotta order something if you're gonna stay here, okay?" The man didn't move. For a second, I thought he hadn't heard her. Then, slowly, he turned his head toward her and smiled. His teeth were yellow, crooked, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a few crumpled bills and said, "Large soda." Kayla nodded stiffly, took the money, and hurried back to the counter. She filled his cup and slid it toward him without another word. "Creepy as hell," she whispered to me as she passed. I tried to laugh it off. "It's Dallas." There's always someone weird, but something about this guy felt off. His clothes looked too heavy for the weather. His hands, when he grabbed the cup, were shaking slightly, but not like an old man's tremor, more like adrenaline. Every few minutes, I caught him staring again, not at Kayla this time, at me. Around 1:15 a.m., the store was quiet. No more drive-through orders. Kayla was cleaning the fryer, Marcus had gone to the office to finish paperwork, and I was sweeping near the trash bins. That's when the man stood up. I froze. He walked slowly toward the counter, cup in hand, but didn't say a word. His footsteps echoed. I glanced toward the back, hoping Marcus would reappear. Kayla looked up from the fryer. "You okay, sir?" The man didn't answer. He stopped near the soda fountain, refilled his cup, then stood there. Just stood there, staring at the reflection in the metal lid. Something about the air felt wrong. "Hey," Kayla said louder now, "we're closing in 15 minutes. You gotta head out soon." He finally turned. His eyes caught mine again. "You live near here?" he asked softly. My chest tightened. "Excuse me?" "Just wondering." Marcus appeared from the back at that exact moment. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave now." The man smiled again, slow and wide. "Sure thing." He walked to the door, pushed it open, and stepped out into the dark. The door chimed shut. For a few seconds, we just stood there in silence. "Jesus," Kayla whispered, "that guy gave me chills." Marcus nodded. "Yeah, lock the doors early. Drive through only we did. And for a while, things went back to normal, or at least I thought they did." When Kayla and I clocked out around 2:10 a.m., the parking lot was mostly empty except for my car and her Accord. The fluorescent lights above flickered, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. "Want me to follow you home?" she asked. "Nah," I said, forcing a smile. "I'll be fine." We hugged, like we always did, and split up. She drove off first, turning left toward her apartment complex a few blocks down. I headed the other way. Halfway home, my phone buzzed. A Facebook message from a name I didn't recognize. Stephen Adams. No profile picture, no mutual friends. I almost ignored it, but something about the timing. It was too weird. I opened it. "You shouldn't drive alone this late," I frowned. Another message followed. "You looked prettier up close." My blood ran cold. I pulled over, heart pounding. The third message popped up before I could even react. "You drive a blue Civic. 2 dents on the back bumper, right?" My breath hitched. I stared into my rearview mirror. Headlights glowed behind me, far enough back not to be close, but I could tell they were following. A white van. I turned my phone face down, hands trembling on the wheel. I pressed the gas. The van did too. Every turn I made, it followed. I drove through 2 red lights, my heart pounding in my ears. My apartment was only 5 minutes away, but I couldn't risk leading him there. I veered off toward Kayla's street instead. When I pulled up outside her building, I texted her. "Are you awake?" She replied instantly. "Yeah, why?" "I think someone's following me." Her door opened before I even parked. She stood in the doorway barefoot, her hair tied back, eyes wide. "Get in here," she said. We locked the door behind us. I peeked through the blinds. The white van was parked across the street, engine still running. Kayla's face went pale. "That's the same guy, isn't it?" I nodded slowly. Then, as if on cue, my phone buzzed again. "You shouldn't have brought her into this." Attached were photos. Us in the parking lot, me inside Taco Bell. Kayla closing the register. "He took these tonight," I whispered. "Kayla, he was inside taking pictures." Her phone lit up next. Unknown number, 1 message. "I told you I'd see you again." She dropped her phone. "We need to call the cops." I dialed 911, my voice shaking. I barely got the words out. Man following us, white van, outside. When the sound of tires screeching cut through the air. The van's headlights flashed through the blinds. Then, silence. A knock on the door, slow, deliberate, 3 times. Kayla covered her mouth. "Oh my God!" The knocking stopped. Then we heard footsteps around the side of the house. "Closet," I whispered. We ran. I pulled the door shut behind us just as the front door rattled violently. A deep laugh echoed through the small apartment. "Come on out," the man's voice drawled. "You girls left your drinks unfinished." Kayla was shaking uncontrollably. I held her close, every muscle in my body frozen. We could hear him moving around the living room. Something glass shattered, then the sound of sirens. Red and blue lights flashed through the blinds. The man cursed, then footsteps, fast, retreating. By the time the police broke in, he was gone. They found the van 3 blocks away, abandoned behind a Dollar General. Inside were knives, duct tape, rope, and a syringe. The police told us later that the man, whose real name was Harold Bennett, had been suspected of stalking women across multiple states but had never been caught. They said we were lucky. But that night never left me. To this day, every time I drive past a Taco Bell after dark, I can still smell the fryer grease, hear the hum of those flickering lights. and see his face pressed against the glass. Watching, waiting. Because some people don't want food when they come through your door, they want you. Story 4. I never used to believe in ghost stories. If you'd asked me back then, I probably would have laughed and said the scariest thing about working at Taco Bell was dealing with drunk customers who couldn't count their change at 2 in the morning. But after that summer in Belmont, Texas, I don't laugh at that kind of stuff anymore. I was 20 years old, working closing shifts at a Taco Bell just outside of town. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid my rent and kept me afloat while I took classes at Lone Star Community College. Belmont was one of those halfway forgotten Texas towns, close enough to Houston to see the skyline on a clear day, but far enough that it felt like a different world after dark. The roads stretched out like veins into nowhere, gas stations blinked out before midnight, and the sound of crickets filled every silence. I lived in a small apartment above a laundromat, the kind that always smelled faintly of detergent and cigarettes. Rent was cheap, the walls were thin, and every night I'd come home with my clothes reeking of fryer oil. I told myself it was temporary, just a phase. That summer, I worked almost every night with Marcus, this laid-back guy in his mid-20s who'd been at the Taco Bell way too long. He was tall, built like a linebacker, but talked like he was half asleep. Then there was Alana, our night manager. Strict, no nonsense, but fair. She ran the place like a ship captain who'd seen too many storms. Closing shifts were always the same. Clean the line, restock, count the drawers, and pray nobody pulled up 5 minutes before closing. We were open until 3 a.m., but everyone knew the last half hour was dead quiet. That's why what happened on my second to last week there still haunts me. It started like any other Thursday night. The dinner rush had died down by midnight, and the only people coming through after that were night shift workers or teenagers daring each other to order 30 tacos. By 2:30 a.m., the place was empty. The air smelled like stale tortillas and bleach. Marcus was wiping down the prep counter, humming something low. Alana was in the office counting the till. I was just zoning out, thinking about my drive home. "You good?" Marcus asked, glancing at me. "Yeah," I said, rubbing my eyes. "Just tired." "Long day?" he chuckled. "Man, this whole week's been long. My feet feel like they're made of bricks. Tell me about it." We were talking about nothing, just killing time, when the headset beeped. Ding, I groaned. "You've got to be kidding me," Marcus laughed. "Who the hell orders at 2:55? "Apparently this guy." I pressed the button on my headset. "Welcome to Taco Bell. Go ahead with your order whenever you're ready." Silence. I frowned and looked at the black and white monitor showing the drive-through lane. A car had pulled up to the speaker box, an old silver sedan, maybe a Nissan, hard to tell under the flickering light. The driver's side window was rolled up, the engine was running, but the car didn't move. "Yo, this guy asleep or something?" Marcus asked, peering over my shoulder. I tried again. "Go ahead when you're ready." Still nothing. The monitor buzzed faintly, static flickering across the screen. I adjusted the headset, waiting for some slurred order or apology, but there was just silence. "Maybe he passed out," Marcus said. "Yeah, maybe." I leaned closer to the screen. "But the engine's still running." Marcus shrugged. "Probably some drunk trying to remember what a crunch wrap is." I was about to agree when the window rolled down. And that's when I froze. There was no one in the driver's seat. The seat was empty, no movement, no shape, no shadow. Just the hum of the engine and the faint reflection of the order box light on the windshield. Marcus frowned. "Wait, what the—" He stepped closer to the monitor, squinting. "Where the hell's the driver?" My mouth went dry. "Maybe they're slumped down?" Marcus grabbed the headset off his neck. "Nah, man, this has to be a prank." But the car didn't move. It just sat there, engine humming, headlights casting long white streaks across the parking lot. I swallowed hard and spoke into the mic again. If you can hear me, we can't take your order unless..." The car rolled forward. Slowly, smoothly. No one behind the wheel. It pulled right up to the payment window like it was being guided by invisible hands. Marcus backed up. Hell no! I wanted to say something, but my throat locked up. The sound of the tires crunching against the pavement felt louder than anything else. Then knock, knock, knock. 3 sharp knocks on the glass. Marcus and I jumped. I turned slowly toward the window. No movement, just that silver car idling. My heart was pounding. Against every ounce of common sense I had, I reached out and unlatched the window. The warm air from outside hit me. The car was right there, maybe 3 feet away. The driver's seat, empty. The passenger's seat, empty. And then I saw it. In the reflection of the drive-through glass, behind me, inside the car, something moved. A face, pale, hollow. Eyes sunk deep like bruises. A grin stretched across its face that didn't look human. I gasped and stumbled back, slamming into the counter. "Marcus!" He rushed over. "What? What did you see?" I pointed, shaking. In the back seat, there was someone there. I swear to God. He looked at the monitor. There's no one. I turned back to the screen. He was right. The back seat was empty again. The car started rolling forward on its own, gliding toward the exit like something unseen was pushing it. Then it stopped, right at the edge of the lot. The brake lights flickered once and went out. The car sat there for a few seconds, then the engine cut off. Silence. Marcus whispered, "We're closing now." I nodded, still frozen. We shut everything down early that night. Lights off, doors locked, alarm set. But even as we cleaned, I couldn't stop replaying that face in my mind. That grin. It wasn't like any human expression I'd ever seen. It felt wrong. When we clocked out, Marcus tried to laugh it off. Probably some TikTok crap, hidden driver projection, something, yeah, I said quietly. Maybe. But deep down, I knew better. The next night, I wasn't working, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to go back. Call it curiosity, or maybe fear that I'd imagined it. Around 2:40 a.m., I parked across the street from the Taco Bell, engine off, lights out. The store looked normal, lights on inside, a few cars passing on the highway, Marcus's old Honda in the lot. Then at 2:55, 5 minutes before closing, the same silver sedan turned into the drive-through lane. My heart dropped. It moved the same way, slow, steady, controlled. It stopped at the speaker box, no movement inside, no sound. Then it rolled forward, right to the payment window. I could see Marcus inside through the glass. He froze when he noticed the car, then leaned toward the window. I held my breath. The window rolled down halfway. For a split second, I saw something in the back seat, something white, like the shape of a face turned toward him. Marcus stepped back so fast he nearly tripped. The lights inside flickered. Then, boom! Something hit the side of the car from the inside, hard. The door rattled like someone was trying to claw their way out. Marcus ran toward the office. The car just sat there, shaking, before it suddenly reversed out of the lane, tires screeching. It turned toward the highway and disappeared. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, Marcus called me. His voice was trembling. "Man, I quit. I can't do that again. I don't care about the paycheck. I didn't blame him. I drove by the Taco Bell a week later. It had closed for renovations. The sign out front was gone, the lot empty. I never saw Marcus again." A few months later, while scrolling Facebook, I saw a local news article. Body found in abandoned vehicle near Highway 27. The photo showed a familiar car, silver sedan, same plates. The report said the car had been there for weeks, but that wasn't possible. I'd seen it move. It's been 3 years since then. I work days now, different town, different job, but sometimes when I drive home late, I'll spot a car idling at an empty drive-through. No driver, no lights inside, and I always look away, because sometimes, just for a second, I think I can see that same pale face staring back at me in the glass, grinning. Story 5. I never used to believe in the kind of stories people whispered about small-town places, the ones that sound too strange to be real but too personal to make up. If you'd told me back then that I'd one day refuse to step inside a Taco Bell because of something supernatural, I would have laughed. But after that night in the summer of 2019, I can't laugh about it anymore. I was 18 now, living in Glendale, Arizona. But that memory, the night everything changed, happened when I was 12. I remember it clearer than anything else in my life. Back then, it was just me and my stepdad, Kevin. My mum had remarried about a year after my dad passed away. Kevin wasn't a bad guy, just quiet, the kind of man who said little but meant well. He was a mechanic, worked long hours, smelled like oil and sawdust most days. I didn't know him that well yet. We were still learning how to be in the same family. That night, we were driving home from my aunt's place in Winslow. It was late, around 9, maybe a little after, and the desert highway stretched ahead of us, endless and quiet. The kind of quiet that made you feel small. The radio was playing softly, some classic rock song Kevin liked. He was humming under his breath, tapping his fingers against the steering wheel. "You hungry?" he asked after a while, glancing at me. I shrugged. "A little," he smiled. "How about Taco Bell?" "Haven't had that in a while." I didn't answer right away. It wasn't that I didn't like Taco Bell. I'd gone there a bunch of times with friends after baseball practice. But that night, something in my gut twisted. My mum always said I had the family sense, like her and my grandma. She called it intuition, said sometimes we just knew when something felt off. But I was 12 and hungry. What was I going to say? "I think the tacos are haunted." "Yeah," I finally said. "Taco Bell's fine." Kevin nodded and took the next exit. The Taco Bell sat on the corner of a quiet intersection in a town called Pinebrook. It wasn't big, just a single-story building with faded red trim and an empty parking lot except for a couple cars near the front. The glowing sign flickered, one letter half dead, so it read Taco Bell. Inside, it smelled like grease and melted cheese. Country music played faintly from a speaker overhead. The fluorescent lights buzzed like mosquitoes. "Go grab us a table," Kevin said. "I'll order." "Okay." I weaved through the crowd, mostly truckers and families, and found an open booth near the window. It was quiet there, away from the noise. I sat down, pulled out my phone, and started scrolling through Instagram, not really paying attention. After a few minutes, I noticed someone sitting across from me. It startled me. I hadn't seen anyone sit down. Just 1 second the seat was empty, and the next there was a boy there. He looked about my age, maybe a little younger. He had short brown hair, pale skin, and wore a faded grey hoodie with the hood half up. His jeans looked worn, like he'd been outside for hours. He smiled, a small, almost shy smile. "Hey," he said. Hey," I replied. I glanced toward the counter, expecting to see his parents, but no one seemed to notice him. "You from around here?" he asked. "No, just passing through," I said. "You?" He nodded. "Yeah, used to come here a lot. There was something strange about the way he said used to. Like he didn't anymore, like it wasn't his choice." "What school you go to?" he asked. "Glendale Middle," I said. "You?" He paused for a moment. "I used to go to Pinebrook Elementary." The way he said used to again made me uneasy. Still, I tried to keep the conversation going. "You play sports?" He shook his head. "Nah, not anymore." I tried to smile, but something about him made it hard to relax. The air around our table felt colder than the rest of the restaurant, and I started noticing people looking at us, like really looking. 2 girls at the counter were whispering, one of them glancing toward our booth. A man by the door frowned when he walked past, his eyes lingering on the empty seat across from me before he turned away quickly. "You okay?" the boy asked, tilting his head. "Yeah," I lied. "Just tired." He smiled again. "I get that." It's late. Just then, Kevin appeared near the counter holding a brown paper bag and 2 drinks. "Come on, bud," he said. "Got everything to go." Okay, I turned back to the boy. Nice talking to you. He smiled wider. Yeah, see you around. As I walked toward the door, something made me turn back. The seat across from where I'd been sitting was empty, no sign of the boy. Ready? Kevin asked, unlocking the truck. Yeah, I said, though my voice came out quieter than I meant. As we pulled out of the lot, I looked back through the window. The boy was standing inside, right by the glass, watching me. His expression was calm, almost sad. Then he lifted his hand slowly and waved. I froze. Kevin turned the truck onto the main road, and as we passed the next window, the boy was gone. Everything all right? Kevin asked, glancing over. Yeah, I said quickly. Just thought I saw someone I knew. He nodded, not pressing it. But as we drove past the far side of the building, my breath caught. There, near the curb, was a small memorial, candles, flowers, a framed photo in the center, the glass cracked down the middle. The face in the photo was the same boy. Stop, I whispered. Kevin frowned. What? Can you pull over for a second? He did, easing the truck to the shoulder. What's going on? I didn't answer. My hands were trembling as I unlocked my phone and typed the words Pine Brook Taco Bell accident into the browser. The first result was a news article from 2016. My stomach turned as I read the headline. Local boy killed in parking lot accident outside Taco Bell. The article said the boy's name was Eli Morgan. He was 11 years old. He'd been waiting inside the restaurant while his parents ran to the gas station next door. He got bored and stepped outside. A car sped through the lot and didn't see him in time. My chest felt hollow. There was a picture at the bottom of the article. Eli's picture. The same face that had smiled at me just minutes ago. I dropped the phone onto my lap, my throat dry. Kevin looked over. What is it? I just shook my head. I couldn't make the words come out. He started driving again, glancing at me occasionally, worried but silent. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Eli's face in the window, the way he'd smiled, the way he'd said used to like it meant something more. I kept replaying our conversation, trying to convince myself it was all a trick of my imagination, or maybe some kid who just looked like him. But deep down, I knew. He hadn't been alive for years. And yet, everyone had seen me talking to someone who wasn't there. A few weeks later, I told my mum what happened. She went pale, her eyes wide but calm, like she'd expected this conversation. You saw him, she said quietly. Who? The boy from Pine Brook. I've heard stories. People say he still sits inside that Taco Bell sometimes. Waiting. Waiting for what? She looked down at her coffee, her voice soft. For someone to notice him. I've never gone back to that Taco Bell. I can't even drive past Pine Brook without feeling sick. Sometimes I think about him, Eli, sitting there by the window, watching cars pass, waiting for his parents to come back, not realizing they never would. And sometimes I wonder why he talked to me. Maybe he was lonely. Maybe he just wanted to be seen again, even for a few minutes. Or maybe he wanted someone to remember him, because there's nothing more terrifying than being forgotten. And I'll never forget the boy who smiled at me from across that table, the boy by the window.